All aboard! Next stop, Chicago Junction.
And welcome to Chicago Junction, a radio program. It's all about the amazing world of railroading and the many facets of the industry, and monorailroading included. I'm your announcer, Brian Ballou, and here is our boss, the head of the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, and our chief electrical engineer, Mr. John DeVita.
Well, thank you very much. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Chicago Junction from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Thursday, August the 9th, the year 2018. Today, the panel will be talking about railroads and model railroads. And now to start today's broadcast, here's our announcer, Mr. Brian.
Oh, thank you, John. Our normal host for the evening, Mr. Jack Red Ryan, is still out with some medical issues, and hopefully he will call in later this evening. And in the meantime, I have been volunteered to be the host.
I understand he's in the shop getting rebuilt.
Yeah, we're trying to get a good one. We think we might have to change shops. So I am Brian Ballou, host / announcer / the gopher, and I have been in railroading for I belong to several museums. I was an engineer and conductor, and I'm a member of the Chicago chapter NRHS. I was a director. I'm a member of the Cincinnati Railroad Club, Cincinnati Cinder Sniffers, and an affiliate with the Cincinnati chapter NRHS. Yeah, that's it. And then a member of the Pacific Southwest Railway Museum in San Diego, along with the Reading Company Technical and Historical Society, located in Hamburg, Pennsylvania. And to my right, I have...
Hi, this is Doug Kenyuk, longtime rail fan, officer in the Railroad and Short Lines Club of Chicago, adjunct professor at Wright College, and an N-scale model railroader. And to my right is...
Good evening. I'm Kevin Berry. I'm a retired Chicago police sergeant, longtime Lionel collector and operator, and a board member with the Chicagoland Lionel Railroad Club.
My name David Darushka. I choose to work for the railroad as a locomotive engineer for Metra and the Illinois Central and the Wisconsin Central and the Chicago Northwestern. I am a member of the Blackhawk chapter of the National Railway Historical Society. I am a member at large of the Railway and Locomotive Historical Society. I have a blog called Player with Railroads, which covers Chicago railroad history. I also run a couple of Facebook pages, our Chicago Junction page, as well as Chicago Railroad Historians, and I am working on plans to have the city of Chicago declare a month of the year Chicago Railroad History Month.
Hoorah!
Booyah!
Yes.
Foolishness going on over there.
Somebody can't read my scrawl.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you opened up. What is your scrawl?
Okay. I have 4 examples of how you can use the little desiccant cans from prescription medication as barrels on the layout. You know, you go to the doctor, he puts you on the pills for the rest of your natural life. You get every 30 days you go through your meds. The jar is empty, and here's 4 different sizes of desiccant tablets. One is half-inch diameter, about an inch tall. There's 2 that are half-inch diameter, about 5/8 of an inch tall. You glue them together, you get a taller barrel, and then there's 2 smaller ones. If you don't want to go out and spend $10 at a hobby store for a barrel for a scene on your layout, you strip the paper label off, you dust them with whatever color paint you want, and you either download whatever label you want for the product off your computer and glue it on, whether you want to make it an oil drum or, castor oil if you're being particularly vicious that day, or you can put a
You will turn it off.
I did.
It's
Just
like in
did.
flight.
Yeah, I just did. I forgot. And you can spend $10, or you can make it yourself from stuff you'd throw out.
That's
Yeah.
very good Imagineering.
Yes, it is.
When your wife doesn't give you any money to build your layout with, you gotta scrounge.
The former Vinay Jones, who used to publish the Traction and Models magazine, that was his motto, scrounge. He always had 1 or 2 pages about how to use ordinary materials on a layout.
Yeah, just like if you need trees for your layout, you just wait till the fall, and there's tons of trees laying in the backyard.
Okay, you want me to start with some news? Or are we waiting on a phone call?
I think we just got a phone call. Okay, I believe we have a caller. Is this Amesley Wonderling?
Yes, it is.
Ah, welcome to Chicago Junction.
Thank
I
you.
hope we don't blow you out.
As long as we don't talk too many things about real trains.
No. We'll talk about the fake one that you put together.
That's a good one to talk about.
Okay. Amesley was working with Dave Clokey,
Floki.
and she actually got the interior for the Lincoln funeral car.
Yes, by pure luck. I had a dress display of Civil War clothing up in Antioch, and folks from Elgin came up to see it, and my husband happened to be there, and he's the train nut, Bob Wonderling, and the husband of one of the women was along, so they started talking trains, and that got Bob down to Elgin to meet Dave, and I was very happy until he came home one day and said they were going to go to the carpet store to get carpet for the interior of the car, and I said, oh no, you have to get the carpet from Family Heirloom Weavers in Red Lion, Pennsylvania, because they do all the carpeting for the historic homes, and with that I fell down the rabbit hole.
Ah.
So that just led to doing the rest of the car.
Now, while we were talking, you mentioned like some of the stories on how you got some of the furniture was
yes.
quite interesting, like the 2 chairs that they have for the soldiers with the coffin.
Yes. If I know you've talked about the car before on your show, and so you probably know that there were no photographs of the interior of the car, but there were 2 drawings in the newspapers at the time. I'm sorry, and that they did not agree one with the other. They both had, the one had soldiers guarding the casket, which was the case, and the other one faced the other way, and the curtains weren't the same. At any rate, looking for the kind of chairs that we knew reclined, we were unable to find any within the budget, so we started looking on Craigslist for similar chairs, and I found a pair of Eastleg chairs that looked closely enough and we're from the period. And we, on Craigslist, called the gal down in South Bend, Indiana, and I told her we have very tight size constraints. Can you give me the dimensions of your chairs? We have a very special project. And she wrote back and she said, here are the sizes of the chairs. They had belonged to my third great-grandfather in Alabama, who owned a plantation. And I said, well, would your third great-grandfather who owned a plantation in Alabama mind if his chairs were used to guard the Lincoln casket? And she said, I will donate them. She was a lady who had carried the burden of her family's history of being slave owners, and she was very glad to relinquish them to such a good cause. So that was the start of getting the furniture for the inside of the train.
Interesting. And getting the chairs of the period, too.
Yes. Well, we were trying to get as many authentic period pieces, and I told Dave all along the way that because the budget was not a lot, that these were not presidential rosewood pieces of furniture. And he said, well, if anybody wants to donate rosewood furniture, we'll be happy to put it on the car. So they are all nice mid-century pieces. Walnut, and let's see, I'm trying to think of all the different pieces. We had a lot of the people from Antioch involved in the car, because once we got involved, it was just easier to go to the local folks. So we had a marble top table donated by one of the antique dealers in town, Wilmot Heritage Antique, and the mirror and a lot of the woodworking on the furniture was done in Hebron, Illinois by Lloyd and Leoder's Antique. We had the glass cut in Antioch for the car. It had to be sent out to be etched elsewhere, but and we got period railroad maps from the 1860s and had those framed locally as well. So there's a lot of Antioch folks that contributed to the car.
Well, yeah, it's just like the people that helped build the car. And for our listeners, one of the reasons why we got into the Lincoln funeral car on our program is the fact that it's going to be on display up in Antioch.
It is. It's been in Duluth, Minnesota since it stopped touring in 2015, and it's going to be traveling fast. So we managed to grab onto it for 2 weeks from August 25th through September 9th. It will be on Skidmore Street or Drive in Antioch, which is by the band shell. It will be open every day from 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. Admission to the car is $5. If you have a tour of 20 people or more, we are allowing those folks to book time between the hours of 10 a.m. and noon, but only the large groups like that. We are also bringing in on Labor Day weekend only, the reenactors will be around on and off for the 2 weeks, but there will be more reenactors here camping on Labor Day weekend. And we will have a band concert by the Regimental Volunteer Band of Wisconsin Saturday afternoon at the band shell at 1:30 in the afternoon. I'm trying to think of my time. We are also very, very lucky that we are getting Fritz Klein to come from Springfield, and he is Springfield Lincoln, and he's also the National Geographic and the History Channel's Lincoln, and he's going to give a program called Last Full Measure. People wonder if he should be at his own funeral, but Last Full Measure details his possible thoughts about the war and his life and the future during the time between when he is shot and when he passes away the next morning. He's going to give that production at the Antioch High School Auditorium on Sunday evening at 7:30 p.m. Tickets will be available at the rail car and also at the box office if there are any left. And the following day on Labor Day, we're having a matinee at the PM&L Theater at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and those tickets will be available at PM&L Theater, their online, or their website. Palette Napkin Liar is what that stands for. And that's right adjacent to the rail car site. So we're going to have a lot going on. So whether you like history or Lincoln or the Civil War trains, but lots to coordinate together.
Yeah, the car will actually be arriving from Minnesota on the 23rd and be stored
Yeah, we're hiding it on the
Yeah,
25th.
you're hiding it until it can be taken over to the area where the car's going to be set up on
Right.
Friday, the 24th.
Right. So all the rail aficionados who want to watch it being put together, which is quite a sight, can show up on the morning of the 24th. I believe Dave is bringing it over early in the morning. It takes 4 hours-ish to get all together, and he wants to get everything in place so we're all set and ready to go by Saturday morning.
Yeah, unofficially I heard a grandstand was going to be set up so everybody could set their cameras up and watch us put the car together.
Oh,
And then figure they'll have a good tape for America's Funniest Home Videos.
Well, don't tell Dave that. Not that it's going to America's Home Videos. Of course, when it was in Painesville, Ohio, they filmed it from a drone, and you can view that on the web. Well, you can view it on YouTube if you look up Lincoln Funeral Train, Painesville, Ohio, or you can view it on thosetrainpeople.com, the website of the HREA, Historic Railroad Equipment Association.
And what's nice is that a lot of the people who were associated with the car will be up during the couple of the weekends, including our friend Shannon Brown.
Yes, Shannon is coming. Shannon is coming. She was planning on being here the whole 2 weeks, but she's got a new job, so she'll be here on the weekends, and we're happy to have her. And she's the one with the tree knowledge, and I understand she's been on this program in the past.
Oh, this would be great. I want to thank you again for calling in, because I know you were a little hesitant.
Well, I can do a lot of talking, but not when it's over the air. But we very much appreciate the opportunity, and we hope everybody will come to Antioch. We do want to let you know that the site initially on the first publicity mentioned that it was a half a block to the north, but actually we got a sinkhole in the property from the creek that flows underneath it. So we're very happy we didn't put the 67,000-pound rail car on the sinkhole. So
well, then we could have had our very own sinkhole pictures in the news, just like they did in Kentucky with the Corvettes.
We probably would have been on the news, and I don't think Mr. Closey would be very happy. But so it's going to be moved a half a block to the south. It's still an easy walk from the metro station. It's less than 2 blocks. The metro does not come to Antioch on the weekend, but we hope some people can hop on the cars and come on out. We also parking is within a block or two of the site, and on-street parking. But because of the shift, we've lost some of our parking. So want to tell everybody, hopefully you can spread out and come during the whole 2 weeks, because we will be there. And now, the other thing to let everybody know is that it is not handicap accessible, and perhaps you've talked about that in the past, meaning because the hallway on the car is so narrow and the doorways are so narrow because it was built to the cars of the time that a wheelchair or even a walker
cannot be used.
Are able to be passed. So if you have a heart ailment or something and you use a cane or no cane, absolutely come on to the car. We have a person at each end to help you on and off the car, and there will be a docent on the train giving you an explanation of what you're looking at. So I think we've covered all the bases. It's $5 to see the car, $10 to see Mr. Klein portray Abraham Lincoln at Antioch High School on Sunday evening, and PM&L Theater on Monday afternoon of Labor Day weekend.
And if they want any more information, I believe they can go to your website of LarkRegionHistory.org.
Well, the better site to go to would actually be the AntiochChamber.com. The Chamber of Commerce has come through. Actually, our webmaster passed away, and our website is down. They tried to get it rebuilt, but we've been too busy doing everything else. So the Chamber stepped up, and all the publicity is on AntiochChamber.com.org. Oh dear. And also on the website for the funeral car itself, thosetrainpeople.com. Also on Facebook, and you can find it on Lakes Region Historical Society on Facebook, on the Antioch Chamber on Facebook, and also on the 2015 Lincoln car. And for those that don't realize the original funeral car was lost in a fire in 1911, hence the name 2015, because we have to distinguish it so no one thinks that it is the actual car that he rode in.
Well, thank you very much, Ainsley.
Well, thank you so much for allowing us to the time. Oh, my husband says, when do you want to do a show about speeders? We have two, and he likes to talk about them. So, and with happy crowds that really enjoy them, give us a call back.
I definitely will, and also I'll be looking forward to meet you when we start putting the car together.
Very good. We will be there, and seek us out. I don't think we'll be wearing those train people shirts, but you never know.
Well,
Thank you very much for your time, and-
you'll see me in grubby work clothes.
Well, you're coming to work, I understand. Yes.
well, supposedly.
And yes, and well, we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
I'll see you in a couple of weeks, and looking forward to meet you and your husband.
Very good. Thank you so much.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Yeah, again, it is the Lincoln Funeral Car, which will be on display up in Antioch from the 25th of September to the 9th. What are you doing?
No, he's pulling into the station late today.
Yeah.
Yes,
What do they introduce?
yes, our secretary showed up. Don't worry, I have handouts for all you guys.
That's good.
That's a great handout.
And I will publicize it on our Facebook
Put it on the
page.
Facebook. Yeah,
Oh, yes.
yeah, we can throw that on there. So go ahead and keep it. See a little bit of Lionel news. Now we had historic news.
Well, we got to get Ron to introduce himself here.
Yeah. we just had our
Right.
like I said,
Will our mystery guest sign in, please?
Yes, please. Ron Stock, former library director at Eisenhower Library. Railroad buff, interested in Amtrak and trips and et cetera on trains. So, sorry I'm late.
You were late.
The train left the station a
You're
little...
allowed one late list, and then we have an investigation.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Blame it on signal problems.
Blame on somebody playing on the tracks.
Normally I'd blame it on the train at Cumberland, but that wasn't the case today.
What's this Lionel news? Is that what we're talking about now?
Well, we were doing Lionel news.
No, actually, we're just doing hobby news.
Yeah. Just such a good hobby.
I have an email that I downloaded from the 20th Century Railroad Club on the 8th of September. 20th Century Railroad Club will be taking a train from Millennium Station to 111th and Cottage Grove, and then participating in a historic Pullman walking tour. It's $15 per person. It does not include your train ticket or lunch. And seeing as you can't click on this because I downloaded it, they have a phone number of 312-829-4500 or an email of tcrc@rcn.com. I've been out at Historic Pullman supporting a couple of their candlelight house walks. If you've never been there, it's certainly a piece of Chicago history and railroad history that you would enjoy. And the 8th of September should be a little bit nicer than it was today. And they certainly go out of their way to make everybody feel welcome and comfortable. So if that's something you think you might be interested in, look it up. The only thing I would recommend is that if you're thinking about it, don't wait too long to book in. I don't know if they have a maximum number of people they can take.
Yeah, I don't know either. I think the Park Service actually does the tour. They have a docent from the Park Service who does the tour. And there's a bit of a controversy going on down there in that community right now about infill housing for artists that a Minneapolis company is attempting to build. There was a tenement apartment building. The middle of the structure burned down, and his land has been vacant since it burned down. And so this group came in and said that they were going to build low-income housing for artists. And there are a number, I wouldn't say a lot, but there are a number of people in the community who really don't want that. The city of Chicago has basically steamrolled the whole process through. And so I don't know if you're going to be met with pickets while you're down there or not. One of my friends is a leader of the anti-club.
Well, I know, I enjoy it with the walking tours we do in October down there when the people open their houses to us.
Yeah, they have the house tours, right?
And why they want to change that and
what, I mean, for having this infill housing issue thing going? Well, it was this group in Minneapolis this is the first time I think the first time they've actually done new construction. They've essentially gone into cities and found derelict buildings, usually high-rise, buildings 3, 4, 5, 6 stories tall, and they rehab them completely and turn them into low-cost housing for artists, including studio space and exhibit space. And it's been a really successful program. Michigan City, Indiana, has a really nice example of it. Unfortunately, the neighborhood there is a little gun-shy about public housing. Past attempts at public housing has basically landed low-income housing into the neighborhood and has had a detrimental effect on it. So people there are concerned that what's going to happen is if they can't find enough artists to fill the space, that the spaces will be rented out to low-income families. So that's part of the controversy. And the other part is that it's not architecturally sensitive to the community itself. It's not an unattractive looking building, but it's not a historic looking building by any standards either. So we'll see how it plays out. I'm pretty sure it's going to get built. There's a lot of changes going on down there. They've they're building a new shopping plaza for small businesses and stuff. The Method manufacturing plant that manufactures cleaning products and stuff is down there. I believe there's a Walmart down there now.
The Walmart is on Doty Road West at 109th Street. There's a major shopping center along the Doty West along the Bishop Ford.
Okay.
But it's all of that is east of the Norfolk Southern Freight Line.
Okay.
It's really not in historic Pullman.
Right. Well, then there's North Pullman too, which is not super historic, but there's the wheel factory, the paper wheel factory there that was converted into public housing, and there's a mega church down there too, which was not welcomed by the community either.
That's also east of the railroad tracks,
Yeah.
but that's at 114th Street.
Right. So, anyways, that's my take on Pullman. It's a nice area, very nice area. And they'd like to see more. They'd like to. There's a strong group of people there who have lived there for decades. I mean, old time residents, and they don't welcome change. They're really not interested in seeing it. In fact, every year they had what they called the Pullman Love-In, which was basically an outdoor picnic with bands playing on the porch of the Florence Hotel, Well, the Park District did away with that this year. So people are not too happy about losing that cultural event, if you want to call it that. Anywho.
Well, you want me to go ahead?
Go.
Okay, I got a couple of things. Number one, contractors claim Union Pacific is delaying California's high-speed rail project. It says here, contractors building the 31-mile section in the Central Valley have complained that the Union Pacific Railroad is causing delays and significant cost increases. The allegation could lead to a delay claim by the contractor against the state. Now, the UP has a 100-foot right-of-way in that area, granted back in the 1860s. And the railroad's contending that the high-speed line wants to build on their right-of-way, and they said no. And the high-speed guys are saying, yes, we will. And that's where the contention and the fight's going right now. And then the UP is also contending that the high-speed rail line is going to cut off a lot of their customers in that 30-mile stretch between Fresno and Medea. So that's what's going on down there. And right now, the contractor who's building this got a $69 million contract to cover paying off the Union Pacific. And of course, that's for about 30 miles of parallel right-of-way. And Union Pacific saying, well, that's not quite enough. There's 75 different design documents that the Union Pacific was supposed to approve for the high-speed rail up against the right-of-way, and all 75 were rejected by the Union Pacific. So the high-speed rail line doesn't know what to do, and it's already doubled their cost because of this.
May I say something?
Sure.
We need to take a station identification.
You're listening to Chicago Junction. You're listening to Chicago Junction on Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norge and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network from the John DeVito Broadcast Center on Thursday, August the 9th, the year 2018. And this is Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norge, Illinois. And now back to Chicago Junction and our panel.
You may continue.
I love this line. It says, they have lots of lawyers. It was a great line in this article. The project itself is 11 years behind schedule. Costs have grown from $33 billion to $77 billion for the high-speed rail. It says Union Pacific can't stop the project, but it can delay it again and again. Another great line from this article. So that's what's going on out there. They're looking for the excuse.
Yeah, it gets me. They've got so much, all the money that was wasted on frivolous lawsuits, and they know that half of them, 2/3 of them are frivolous.
Yep.
And just to put a kink in the works, when all that money could have been to good stuff.
Well, here in our backyard, guess who asked for another 30-day extension? The Illinois Tollway and CP Rail. As I told you last month, CP Rail is going to drag this out until the tollway either gives up or yields to some of the CP demands. Been down in that area. Construction is basically stopped. They're not doing anything anymore to the tollway because without the property from the CP Rail, they can't finish the interchange. However, it has not stopped the tollway. They've bought everything up now that's on the north side of Green Street from where the post office is in Bensonville, right by York Road, all the way down past to about where the UP crosses the Green Street. That's all been bought over. Now, the rest of the property is the rail yard with the container to get to the tollway. And that's that part, and there's another piece of property where the old diesel shops were. That's what they're arguing about. The tollway wants it, and the railroad's saying no. And that's what they're negotiating right now. So they asked for another 30-day extension.
Send lawyers, guns, and money.
That's it.
And we talked about this last time, but the Chicago terminal's out at Elk Grove Village. Meantime, the Goose Island line is dead. The last piece of track between the UP and the river has just been abandoned and it's going to the city as part of the rail trail, even though I can't figure out how they're going to do this. Well, they came up with the rail trail, how they're going to connect the rail trail, how the 606 is going to connect to this is they're going to go down underneath and just go right next to Armitage and then build a ramp to go back up to it on the other side of the UP tracks. So that's how they got around. That's how they're going to do it. So with that piece, the Goose Island operation's dead. That just leaves the Bensonville industrial lead for Iowa Pacific for the Chicago terminal.
I noticed I took the Northwestern train up to Waukegan last week, and I saw like 3 or 4 refrigerator cars over at the North Avenue Yard. I think it was the North Avenue Yard.
Yeah.
And then their switch engine was tucked behind them.
Yeah, those are the cars they used to store on Goose Island until the Sterling Bay got all bent out of shape about it. So that's the story there. Got a new railroad downstate, the Decatur in Eastern Illinois, a WACO operation. CSX is selling off a lot of track. This is 126 miles of track running between Montezuma, Indiana, and Decatur, Illinois, and between Terre Haute and Avalette, Illinois. Avalette's just outside Danville, and the Paris Industrial Track. No startup date yet. They're still hiring people. That's the story on that guy. International Rail Partners. Speaking of Iowa Pacific, they just sold their Grenada line to Iowa International Rail Partners. So Iowa Pacific is slowly selling off everything.
Fire sale, fire sale.
Yeah, and Grenada Railroad's down in runs from Memphis, Tennessee to Canton, Mississippi, 212-mile line. You guys work for Metra. How do you think this would work on Metra? In England, they're going to try out seat sensors to let people know if the seat's occupied or not. They're going to have a little red and green light above each seat, and if there's somebody sitting in it, it turns red. If there's nobody in the seat, it's green. That way the people don't have to scramble from car to car looking for a seat. They can just peek in now and see where it is. On the former East Coast line operated by Virgin Rail, now operated by LNER, they're going to be testing this technology starting this fall. So I'm like, I was sitting there reading this and thinking, how would this work on Metra?
Oh.
People will still walk through the cars looking for seats. They won't look
Yes.
at the lights.
And finally, we talked about this about rails to trails. We were talking about Noblesville and how the lawyers are getting in there now with the property. There's an organization called the National Association of Revisionary Property Owners. Apparently, these guys have been at it since 1997. And their contention, and in their website, they actually named some college on the East Coast that has all this, is that they go back in 1913. All the railroads had to tell the federal government how they got their right-of-way. Is it leased? Is it easement? Is it they own it or what? And this college has all these records. And apparently these guys go in there when a trail comes up or when somebody says, oh, it's rail bank this, and by the way, we'll make a trail out of it just to preserve it. They go look into property records because what they're contending is that a lot of the property, the railroads didn't own it, but it's being seized for the rail trails. And they're fighting them. And if you go out and do a search on their name on the STB site, there's a whole back and forth and back and forth. For instance, these guys, they call themselves NARPO, N-A-R-P-O, contend that all these extensions for the rail trails, which last 5 or 6 years, 180 days to negotiate for the rail trail, then they extend another 180, another 180. This could go on 5, 6 years, is done to mask the fact that they're seizing somebody else's property. And they said that should be limited. And of course, the rail to trail guys come right back and say, no, that's okay. If it takes 10 years, it's okay. We'll get it as a trail. So both of them are bending all the rules and regulations to their viewpoint. And right now they're fighting with the city of Seattle, Franklin County in Iowa, and Madison County here in Illinois over the easements. Now, this has happened in the past. About 10 years ago, when the Tribune still owned the Cubs, they wanted to buy the land immediately west of the stadium that used to be the Milwaukee Road. So they went to the CMC Corporation, which at that time just got through disposing of all the Milwaukee Road assets and still had some land and stuff, and said, we want to buy the right-of-way. CMC said, okay. A couple of $1 million later, they sold it to Wrigley to Tribune Company to use to expand the parking lot. Well, City of Chicago looked at it and said, wait a minute, CMC didn't own that. They just had easement on city property. So now the Tribune had to go and pay the City of Chicago a couple of $1 million to get the property because nobody bothered to look up the property
Did
records.
they ask for a refund from CMs?
I don't know. Nobody followed up on that. So that has happened in the past. It's happening now, and these guys are fighting with the rails to trails people to get them to stop seizing land, basically.
Aren't you supposed to do a title search when you buy real estate? Or is that only on houses?
No.
No, that's on anything.
Anything,
However,
right.
however,
They're not careful.
they're, how shall I say? Well, they're doing what the government's doing.
So the lawyers get together and rub pinky rings and have a martini and it's a done deal.
Well,
Yeah.
there's a lot of assumptions going on, you know. The
Yeah.
assumption is that the railroad owns the property
Yes.
and that the railroad has a title free and clear and right to sell that property.
At times, yes.
Do you have anything about Noblesville there?
No.
Did you? You had something, didn't you?
Well, I got one
Yes.
more, and that's it. Real quick, the Peru Industrial Railroad, IDOT's giving them a couple of bucks to fix up the property and put in a transload. So the city of Peru is pushing their little 3-mile railroad, which is operated by Omnitracks, to
Yeah, because a lot of the track that went to Peru is gone.
yeah. So there's a 3-mile.
I was surprised how much track was pulled up. And then again, I'm seeing what CSX is doing. I'm wondering when CSX actually stopped being, when railroads now stop caring. I know they don't care about people. We see what they do with Amtrak, you know, and stopping. And well, the guy that's running Amtrak now, you know, everybody's pissed at Trump and nobody's pissed at this guy.
Oh, a lot of people are PO'd at him.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people, including politicians, you know. The Southwest chief.
I mean,
is-
he's
Right.
you know, he said right out he's changing the long distance mode, and I'm going. That's what they did with they took away the regional airlines and took away regional buses.
right.
They stopped. They're not caring about the people.
No.
And now CSX is very blatant with this. They want to get rid of 8,000 miles of track. Not to mention the stuff that's already been tore up. But they were supposed to, you serve the people. They only want their own little commodity. I mean, they got rid of the small businesses that still gave to the profit, but now the profit margin's not high enough.
Right.
I mean, when are people going to say enough? I mean, I know a lot of the stockholders don't, but there's small stockholders in there that do give a hoot.
Well, you grow a business by getting new business, not cut.
Well, that's what they're doing to make their bottom line look good with just single traffic. Remember, all the scrapyards used to send their scrap by rail. Of course, there were steel mills to send a lot of that scrap too.
Okay, what do you got?
I don't know, heartburn, I think. Right?
This has been an editorial comment from our announcer, Brian Ballou.
I was just saying, well, okay, we got this came from Trains a couple weeks ago on their weekly dump. With minutes to spare on the last piece of Indiana transportation, rolling stock left its home of more than 50 years as the police moved in to secure the property at what is now only the major American Railroad Museum to be rudely evicted in modern times. And according to witnesses on the site, Florida East Coast office car number 90, the ornate 1898 Jackson & Sharp built private car of railroad magnate Henry M. Flagler, left the site minutes before the court-ordered eviction deadline for the museum. A Burlington route car, the Silver Salon, also departed shortly before the deadline. Anything left on site, with the exception of privately owned equipment, to be moved later. Goes to the city of Noblesville, which does not apparently in control of the Forest Park Museum site. A report published on Facebook group Ahead of the Torch, which direct references to scrapping, says the only remaining ITM rolling stock left on the site was a Pennsylvania Railroad hopper and a New York Central baggage car. Earlier this week, an Atlantic Coast Line lightweight passenger car was scrapped on site, and last week a Milwaukee Road SW1 also met the same fate. On the positive side, numerous pieces were sold to other preservation groups and are tagged, and others transferred otherwhere for safekeeping, including the jewel of the collection, the nickel plate 282, number 587, now in Kentucky. The Milwaukee Road F units, which gained fame on point of the fair train operations during the 80s, reportedly were sold and are awaiting transportation. More on this story as more details unfold.
Now, they're landlocked, aren't they? They don't have any way to get those anything of that out by rail.
They got it all out by trucks.
Yeah.
A trucking company there, which moved it, had the locomotive moved to Ravinia, Kentucky, where another steam locomotive group said, we'll take it in, and they're rebuilding one of the CNO, they'll be rebuilding 2716, the CNO Kanawha that was rebuilt by the Fort Wayne group and used on Southern Railway for excursions before it had firebox problems. But something happened with that during its trip. The state, which really goes through and looks at all the roads that heavy equipment can run over, the nickel plate 587 had a small transportation mishap. The semi hauling the 765 driving wheels and rods down Estill County, Kentucky, got stuck on a back road in Madison County, Kentucky. It was stuck there for 24 hours. The driver of the truck said he's simply following the permit the state of Kentucky gave him, which led to Pinella Road in Waco. He was delivering the steam locomotive to Ravinia, and he was finally freed with the help of 2 wrecker trucks. I would have kept going around the curve without the first wrecker. I would have ended up flipping the load. The semi was stuck in the middle of the road between 2 curves that were a little bit sharper than thought to be. The kind of load that the driver says he should not have been in the first place. The driver also said he was 118 feet long at 185,000 pounds. He had no business being on the road. He said he should have been on a 4-lane highway. The neighbors who lived near the property where the semi got stuck said the driver and several other people were out all night putting rock down to get the semi out of the yard that it slid into. Even used a bulldozer. After 24 hours, the semi was back on its way to Ravinia.
Sounds like the state guy did a Google map and said, here we go, that'll work.
Yeah. That's about it. Now, going toward the green to help take care of any possibility of having to contribute to any more forest fires in Colorado, the Durango Silverton has a locomotive number 933, which has been on display there, and a bigger engine that they really needed is going to be converted to burn oil, and they're buying a few more 45 tonners. So you might have a triple header of 45 tonners to take a train up to Silverton. Of course, the big boy, they're going all out on it. A lot of the boiler work is done. or boiler work is being completed. The new tube sheets are in. They've got putting in all the equipment, getting the rest of the stay bolts in, and they got all the equipment for oil firing. They're going to be converting it from coal, and they have one axle more to do for the driving wheel, and that'll be shipped out of Strasburg, and should be in Cheyenne right now, actually.
Now, there was some question buzz on the internet about the recent pedestrian fatality.
Okay, there was some actually news today
Oh yeah.
came out. Now everybody, of course, said this is that day there were actually 3 people that died in rail accidents. The person they didn't know about the other 2, but they knew about this one because a steam locomotive is what hit her. She was standing too close to the tracks taking pictures with her cell phone. The family says it was an accident. Everybody else was speculating about everything coming to a crashing halt
Yeah.
because it was a steam locomotive that did it. And doing the Denver to Cheyenne roundup train, which has been an annual event. It is a shame, but she was too close to the tracks. It has been ruled an accident. Yeah, what got me was the Fort Wayne Society got out there and started putting stuff on. Well, yeah, we're going to have to look at this and to make sure we're all set and everything. Everybody was jumping the gun when all the stuff was done correctly. It is a shame. Yes, the trip the next day went without steam. They just went with the diesels pulling it while they did the investigation. But the UP has been cleared of any wrongdoing, the crew and everything. It was just one of those things, which is what we keep harping about with Operation Lifesaver.
Was that the other day, Bri?
That was last 2 weekends ago.
Oh, okay. Well, there was something that happened just a couple of days ago where some kid got killed, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
there was 2 kids in Indiana.
Yeah.
A young boy and a young girl. The boy was a rail nut, 5 years old. They lived in a trailer park next to the CSX tracks, and they got out of the house and walked up the embankment. They were both struck by the train. The boy died, and the young girl survived, and I guess she's doing okay, according to the family. And of course, there's a call now for fencing to go up along the right-of-way there, and my contention is that you can put up all the fences in the world, but what usually happens is once a fence goes up, the first thing people do is they cut holes in it because they don't want to be denied their quick access shortcut across the tracks. And then that puts the railroad in a difficult position of an additional liability, because now if they don't maintain the fence and there's an accident, they're negligent. So what's their choice? Leave it open for people to make mistakes and walk up the track and get hit by the train, or to try to deny them access and be somehow liable for the fact that people still want to have access by cutting holes in the fence.
Just like the old saying goes, can't lose for winning.
No, you can't. So it's a catch-22 situation.
It is a catch-22 because just recently read a story. There was a group of kids, and this is in England.
Yeah.
A group of kids went through a hole in the fence, playing in the yard, climbing on the equipment, jumping up and down on it, and hitting an energized line. Catenary. Now the whole neighborhood's getting together and doing a giant lawsuit because it's the railroad's fault. The kids went in there. They did nothing to keep them out.
Well, what was happening, the holes in the fence are because you had scavengers going in there and stealing metal.
Yeah.
So it's the railroad's fault.
There was a train fatality either last year or the year before up in one of the northern suburbs, and the railroad had put up a gate, and the local teens cut a hole in it because they could go through the hole in the fence, cut across the football field behind the high school, and knock 7 or 12 minutes off their walking time to school.
Yeah. Well, we see it. You're going through the neighborhood. We got people complaining. Hey, this is a no horn zone. Why are all the horns blowing?
Yeah, right.
You got people trespassing. You got people going around the gates. I am very, very lucky to have my hair, but it's white. The close calls.
I don't know if you watch on YouTube, you could watch Virtual Rail Fan streams a number of cameras from around the country. And the fascinating one is LaGrange, Kentucky, where the CSX goes right down the middle of the street. And it's the main. I mean, this is a busy town. And it's a no horn zone. And every so often, all of a sudden, here comes the engine. I'm not sure the direction. It was coming towards us. And watching with the camera. All of a sudden, the guy is leaning on the horn, and you see somebody driving right out in front of him. And that's when he really leans on the horn. Most of the times, it's a no horn zone, the whole downtown there.
Go to Michigan City.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of people record this, and there's one where here comes the train. The guy at this SUV sees it, so he pulls over, doesn't pull over enough. First engine makes it by him, second engine clips the SUV, and then just spins it around and slaps into a couple of cars. Everything comes to a stop. Now the whole downtown's tied up because there's a freight train sitting there.
And then I've got, from the different movies that we show with Operation Lifesaver, and it's funny because you see one coming out, you see a car trying to cross in front.
Mm-hmm.
Gets hit by a switcher, and the guy gets out, and he's swearing at the train. What do you mean you hit my car? Why didn't you stop?
Just go down to Dalton. I watch over there, and, of course, the gates will go down, and 2 or 3 trains will go by, and as the gates are coming down, people are racing. They're actually jamming their gas pedal to get across.
Yep.
And I just turn the camera and say, okay, I got the video going.
All right.
Okay.
Do you have anything? Well, I'll tell you what. We need to stop for station identification.
Okay.
John?
You're listening to Chicago Junction on Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norge and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Thursday, August the 9th, the year 2018. And now back to Chicago Junction, and Brian, it's all yours.
We're back.
All right.
Come on, Mr. Librarian.
Yeah, I was on vacation last week. I went for 2 weeks 2 days, I should say, 3 days.
Felt like 2 weeks.
Yeah, no, actually, it wasn't bad. It was a very short but very fun vacation. Went to the Dells and also to stayed in Baraboo. So on the final day, me and 2 of my friends, we went up to the Continental Railroad Museum in North Freedom, which was maybe a 10, 15, 20-minute ride, not very far, and rode their train that day and saw their equipment. I think there's a possibility I could have been there like 20 or 30 years ago, because our family used to go to the Dells every year, and I think we started out somewhere in the 50s, like 57 or 58, and went to the Dells till I got out of college, which was 73. So we went every year for Labor Day. And one of the things that we probably were at the Railroad Museum during that time period, because they were founded in 65, and but haven't been there for a long time. And the 2 things that I found really, there were a lot of fascinating things there, but the 2 that really intrigued me, they have a rotary plow, which is I've seen models of them, and through Amtrak, I've seen some on the rails up, especially going into the Rockies. But getting a chance to actually be next to one is pretty impressive, and you'd love this. You don't want to have that much snow, but you'd love to see how they work, because having seen pictures and film of them in action, it's quite fascinating because the thing stands about 14 feet high, or I figured the diameter on that's got to be at least 12 feet, maybe more, and that's a pretty cool piece of equipment. The other thing that they had there was a shoot, I can't think of. They had another plow, which was a more like a sledge plow, where it's
They have the wedges.
yeah, the wedges in
plow and-
front. Yeah,
Yeah, and then they have Jordan spreaders too, which have the wings
Yeah.
that come out.
those are. I think those are the most modern of the plows.
Right.
But the only bad part about the sledge plow was that their museum is rather dark. So taking pictures there, even though I got a digital camera, was interesting, to say the least. So I did get a couple of pictures of it. It was pretty nice. The other couple of pieces of equipment that they have a railroad car called the Oak Park, which was actually ran in Oak Park. And it was a passenger car, probably built in like the 1860s. They had another car which was called the Fish Car, which was that was pretty unique because the only other time I was reading an article, and I forgot what magazine. It might have been the IC that had an article about when they were stocking the Shedd Aquarium from Florida. And they showed a lot of railroad cars that were involved in bringing the fish up.
Yeah, they got the Nautilus down in the Monticello Museum.
Oh,
That was
okay.
used to fill up the shed.
And
I
I
haven't
think-
been there.
Is
I
it-
got to go there.
I think that car in specific was featured on a program where they were
amazing restorations.
amazing
of-
restorations.
Oh, it was.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
they
from,
did.
I have to
told-
look for that then,
Yeah.
because I remember seeing some of the episodes, but not
yeah,
that.
it was a Wisconsin fisheries car, and they used the car for stocking
Yes.
the lakes.
Yeah.
Yes, and it was amazing because they had the fish tanks there, but then the back end of the car was all like a parlor car, basically, because they had tables and all kinds of for the fishery people. It was a nice looking car. So,
Yeah, they had pulled all the tanks out and everything and made a coach out of it.
yeah,
And then they went back and totally restored it to what it was.
right.
Yeah, that was an amazing program to watch.
That was very, very cool. They have a Northwestern car done really nice. They had a Masabi Range caboose, which they ran. When you buy a ticket there, you automatically get the train ride, which is about 7 miles round trip, or one direction round trip 14, and that was pretty nice because you're going through farm country. And then the one thing that I didn't realize that they tell you that originally that line was a mining line, and that they were doing various type of mineral extractions of quartz, as well as I think railroad bed.
The ballast.
Yeah, the ballast.
Yeah, Northwestern had an interesting ballast they call Pink Lady, which was, I think, granite based.
Yeah, granted, and
Yeah.
it actually came
I think
from
it
that
came
area.
from that area because I think they mentioned that. So anyway, that was really, really cool. And then the other thing that I recalled as a kid, when I was going to the Dells, it was the famous thing that it was the one thing that I loved doing every year. It didn't last very long, I think. Basically, it started sometime maybe 1960, and it ran to about probably 65. They had a thing which was called the Wisconsin Dells Mini Ram, which had water actually in it, and then they ran various types of boats on the Upper Dells trip to give you a flavor of the Upper Dells, what they in the 50s and 40s. And then the other thing that they did, they had a railroad, O-gauge railroad running through it. And unfortunately, I was leaving so quickly, I don't think I brought the article, but Route 12, I think it is, that's there. They had the road is no longer being used, so they got rid of the road part, which was the lower part of the bridge, But the upper part of the bridge is still being used both by Amtrak as well as what back then was the Milwaukee Road. And that's kind of unique in that I'm sure there's a lot of bridges that have both upper and lower decks or roads or trains, but that was pretty cool. And one of the things they had on this was showing that in its original state, because at the time that was the way you got into the downtown of the Dells. So that was pretty neat. And I went on the internet to see if they had articles, and sure enough, they did actually about the Train Magazine did one, and then they had some by a couple of local people that wrote articles about this, the Wisconsin Dells Minirama, which and the Wisconsin one photograph they have, which is sort of funny in a way. They have a guy who's dressed with goggles on, and he's next to a steamboat, and in the background is the Dells Rock Formation. So, and he's halfway submerged in the water. So, anyway.
Yeah. Well, I got a couple small items to do. In the world of preservation, South Africa had a locomotive called the Red Devil, and they actually rebuilt it, and it's running again now, running out of Cape Town. It's a unique class of 484. It was a class 25 condensing locomotive, and they turned it into non-condensing, and it was being the leader for class 26. It was built in West Germany, and in 1953, and Dante Porta, a very famous Argentine engineer who did a lot of trying to improve steam locomotives, tried his hand on it. The development was undertaken by Argentine LD Porta and aimed to increase the amount of steam available while reducing the amount of fuel required. They included a conversion to a gas coal producing firebox, fitting a new Lampor exhaust and improved lubrication. Tests between 1981 and 1984 showed, compared to the unmodified Class 25 NC, the new Class 26 used 28% less coal and 30% less water, while increasing output by 43%. Despite these positive results, no further locomotives were converted, with new diesel and electric locomotives being bought instead. The locomotive has been stored since 2004 at Monument Station in Cape Town, owned by the Transnet Heritage Foundation, but was in the care of local rail fans. Locomotive remains the property of Transnet, but is now leased to Sears Rail, which operates special trains between Cape Town, Robertson on the Western Cape wine region. First trip was just 10 days after initial test run. If you want to see the Red Devil in action, look up Greg Scholl videos on the internet, and look for his African series. He made a series of several tapes in South Africa, and has some really beautiful shots going throughout South Africa chasing steam back when it was still running good. But yeah, use Greg Show videos. Greg's got some really good stuff. We talked about the Lincoln funeral car being on display at the end of the month, starting on the 25th. On August 18th, and people will hear about it before it happens, actually, the Fort Wayne Historical Society is going to have an open house in New Haven, and Nickel Plate 765 is going to be lit off, and she'll do demonstrations on the track. And I believe they're going to actually sell throttle time also for people to try it. who have that much. But it'll be on August 18th, starting at about 9, 10 o'clock in the morning and go until the afternoon. And it'll be in New Haven, which is just outside of Fort Wayne, is where they have the shop. And for $5, you can ride the little switcher they have in the caboose, going back and forth to the main and back. It'd be a nice, interesting day to do. Well, I had just about
Please.
Oh, he wants to talk about his vacation.
Had the opportunity to go to Honolulu for a week, and Uncle Brian said I couldn't come back if I didn't ride the train at Eva Beach. Eva Beach. And it's the Hawaiian Railway, which is a part of the National Railway Historical Society. And the tour cars are built on chassis of 1930 and 1940 Army and Navy flat cars, and they've been stripped and brought up to standard with new decking and sides and a roof and church pew type seats and a 45-ton Whitcomb center cab, which is a veteran of U.S. Navy service and still bears its U.S. Navy 65- serial number on both sides of the cab, provides the motive power, and I believe there were 5 or 6 passenger cars that day. And it's about a 5-mile trip from the station out past the new Disney resort. It's only one set of track. They can't turn around, so if you're on the mountainside going out, when they get as far out as they can go, everybody stands up and trades places with the person on the other side, so you're on the ocean side on the return trip. And about a mile coming back in, they stop at a place called Two Scoops, and they have 30 different types of ice cream, including an excellent pineapple sherbet that my wife and I both enjoyed. And the day we were there, apparently they have come to an accommodation with the Disney organization, because Disney guests can get on at the Disney site, which is right by the ice cream shop. And Maui, the demigod from Moana, was actually riding the train. So there was this very close to 6'4" island gentleman, and what wasn't actual tattoos was a t-shirt of tattoos, and he had what was meant to be perceived as a giant fish hook carved out of whalebone hanging around his neck, and he was smiling and waving at all the kids and allowing his picture to be taken. And they run on what was the Oahu Railway and Land Company track, which was started by a gentleman by the name of Dillingham, and his private car is still there, although it had been taken out of service in late April to undergo a total rebuild. And hopefully it will be back in service, sometime before next summer. Thoroughly enjoyable trip. Nothing fancy. No food service. They do have a small building about the size of a 2-car garage, and a gentleman that lives on Oahu took his entire Lionel train collection, and he and a couple other gentlemen built an interesting train layout that's free to people to view while they're waiting for the train to come in.
When you went out, did you travel past Barber's Point and in the middle of the golf course?
There was a golf course, but I think it was the one that belongs to Disney. I didn't get behind the wheel of a car once during the week I was there. I figured I didn't need to donate any money to the state of Hawaii because I'd be lost within 10 foot of leaving the hotel.
No. On the while you were riding the train, did you go by? You did go by the gates of Barbers Point Naval Air Station.
I don't believe going past. We went past Barber Point. We may have, and they just didn't point it out, but I didn't see anything that looked like the gates to Barber Point. The only set of gates to a military facility that I saw, that I remember seeing, was entering into Pearl Harbor for the harbor tour and returning from the Polynesian Cultural Center. We went past the gates to one section of Schofield Barracks.
Schofield.
It was the job of the demigod to get everybody's attention away from the military base.
Yes.
I didn't see.
No, half the base had been shut down and was being used by civilians.
I didn't see anything that looked like a runway or a control tower or any water tower painted white and orange.
Okay. I agree. All right.
Okay, Buana.
I haven't been to Pearl
In a while.
since '94, when they almost kicked me off the train.
The other thing is I was handed a card. One of our guys went up to Des Plaines, and Operation North Pole, which is the train for very sick and medically challenged children. They are looking for donations and volunteers. If anyone is interested, their website is www.operationnorthpole.org with a phone number of 847-813-5387. And if you're wondering what their train looks like, Kato has made the train, and the design on the sleeving on the bi-level passenger cars change every year. It's a cute little train. And I thank you.
And I believe, on that note, we're going to have to really come up with words. We're going to have to make up a complete song for Happy Rails to You. But thank you,
I'll
gentlemen.
work on that.
I believe Chicago Junction is pulling into the station, guys. Oh, have you had any luck trying to get hold of any of the management from the new Chicago Junction?
No. Not yet.
Jack's supposed to call in.
Huh?
Keep talking, Jack's supposed to call in.
He's late. We can't. Sorry. Train's left the station.
Tollway's closed.
Oh, geez, yeah. Gonna have to have Shaq start walking on top.
Trying to think, is there any train-based movies out this year for 2018 anybody's aware of?
No.
Actually, no.
I know the new Murder on the Orient Express is finally making it to cable TV. It's going to be on HBO this weekend.
Yeah, well, you know, it's been out already on DVDs. Heck, I went out and watched my old copy. I don't know. You know, you figure Sean Connery, you can't go wrong. And Albert Finney.
George Kennedy. Jacqueline was beset.
I got a
Lauren Bacall.
couple quick pieces of railroad news before
Okay.
Mr. Ryan calls in.
If Mr. Ryan calls in.
Metra had to send out new bids for new passenger cars they had only one bidder on the cars, on the new cars, and guess who it was? The Chinese rail company.
Oh yeah, because of that new thing now.
Yeah, I think this happened before the government. The government actually stepped in and said that the American railroads can no longer purchase Chinese equipment. Period. I mean, they just flat out said you can't do it.
Yeah,
some
because
kind of law.
they already got all the stuff from GE. That's why they're doing the trains for India.
Yeah. So they put the bid out again, and we'll see what comes up. There's all kinds of speculation as to what kind of cars are going to show up. Are they going to be like Go Transit, or what are they going to get?
Flat cars with benches.
Well, you got the double deckers that they built for the East.
Yeah, there's a lot of different cars out there.
And they're what it is. They're set for low riding platforms,
Right.
Because of the height.
Right.
Because of if it was over 16 feet, you couldn't run.
I think Kawasaki has a car that is nominally double decker. It's got on either end. It's got upper level seats, but in the center it doesn't.
Right. But yeah, the center goes down low. Well, it's like using the base of the Keystone cars that Pennsylvania Railroad built. They had that 7-car set that was slow slung tubular, and you walked in, and then you just walked down
Right.
to the level.
Well, you can't do that anymore because of ADA compliance.
That's why the ends of the cars are on a single level. Okay. I believe they're going to let us come back into the station.
Yeah, right.
We're not being quarantined now. So again, thank you for listening. Again, if you have any suggestions, please make it known on our website and our Facebook if you want to hear something us to actually mention.
Or if you don't like how we talk,
Oh yeah,
send in a complaint.
Send in a complaint, so we can address it.
With the resume, we're always looking for new panelists.
And in the meantime, definitely happy rails to you from all of us. As our express comes into the station, we want to thank you for joining us on our journey through the wonderful world of trains. Chicago Junction is a production of the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and can be listened to on the web at www.windycityhometown.com, where you can listen to tonight's broadcast and all our past episodes if you want to be so tortured, and also sample some of the other fine programs that are being offered. I'm your announcer/host, Brian Valou. Till next month, again, when we go to Chicago Junction.
You have been listening to Chicago Junction on Jack FM 89.7, WRHS FM Norwich, and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Thursday, August the 6th, the year 2018. Chicago Junction was produced by Jack Ryan, directed by John DeVita, and our special thanks to radio station manager Kevin Zefalik of WRHS FM Norwich and the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, Mr. John Chicana. This broadcast was pre-recorded on Thursday, August the 9th, the year 2018. Until next time, friends, please be safe and thanks for listening.